Hello and welcome to another Mapping It Out Wednesdays. This Wednesday, Akila is going to be talking about something that she is a true expert on, which is AI and motivation. I'm really excited about this topic. I'm really excited to hear about technology and motivation and what demotivates us, what motivates us, how we can use motivation in this AI world. I'm really, really excited about this, Akila. How are you doing before we jump in?
You know what? I am doing very well, and I am excited about this too, because everybody's talking AI, but nobody, to my knowledge, has concatenated the two to say, well, how is AI affecting motivation?
Yeah,
And I wanted to bring those two subjects, which I'm passionate about, together.
I love this. And you're absolutely right. I haven't really heard anyone discussing this, which I think is really interesting because almost every other day, there's either an article or a news story or a book that's coming out talking about AI and what we can expect in terms of careers, like the future careers in AI or how AI is affecting current careers. But no
Mhm.
one's sort of talking about the effect it's having on us as human beings in the workplace and the effect that it can have in terms of you hear all the time about we're not going to get rid of jobs because of AI or the opposite. We are going to cut jobs because of AI. And that has to have an effect on people, wouldn't
It
you say?
does. Yes, it does indeed.
Yeah.
And you are quite correct. Both of those statements are true. When I'm working with a client to help them to design their strategy for implementing AI, I started with a people first focus. Because here's something I don't think people think about before they talk to AI. The first thing in their minds is, oh, we're going to upgrade our technology. We can do things faster and better and with less cost.
Mm.
But what they don't understand is that if they're going to continue and grow and keep their competitive edge, your business can't stay where it is. It has to grow. And that's where your most valuable assets are the people who've been working for you. And they are needed. They have all of the knowledge of your business. So they are the ones who can work on those next things to make it grow. So
Absolutely.
it's taking away that short-term point of view and coming up with a strategic plan as to how can we do this.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's very funny that you brought that up because I think that's true of even every time we have any sort of technology, new technology in the workplace, we are always lagging behind when it comes to how do we help people adapt to that
Mhm.
technology. And I think, which I'm dating myself, but I started in the workplace in the early 90s. That's when after I graduated from uni and then started at full-time, my first full-time job. And back then, the latest craze, which again, I'm dating myself, so anybody in younger than 35 is going to be shocked by this. But back then, the big technology craze was Microsoft Office. It was gonna revolutionize how we did our work, and we would have such automation from Microsoft Office, which is very funny to think about now. But the point of that is that there was not a lot of support back then to really help people adapt to this new environment. And then I thought about that recently. You and I had a conversation not too long ago around AI. And I thought about that fact in thinking about this as well, where the technology is well advanced beyond Microsoft Office. Now we're talking to our computers. But the idea that we're not helping people uh, prep and understand how to use the technology and really looking at what their motivations how those could be affected. So, as we're sort of beginning this conversation around motivation, what are your thoughts around technology, AI in this case specifically, and motivation? Is it a motivator for people? Is it a demotivator? Am I making it more than it needs to be? What's going on?
It's both. It
Okay.
can be a motivator or a demotivator. And that's why it's important for employees or leaders, both the employee and the leadership, to know whether it's motivating them or demotivating them. And you can also see, again, AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. It needs change. It's a culture change for people. And if you're going to change anything, you need to know what motivates people and how what you're going to do or what you're doing is going to demotivate them, or if it's going to motivate them. You want to feed the motivators and address the demotivators.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well put. And such an interesting thing too, because as we've talked about in previous episodes, we've talked about the fact that how we view change is also can be affected around our motivations, right? That energy
Yes.
around that. And so I would imagine someone like me who sort of loves change, I'll confess my sin between you, me, and the audience.
Yeah.
So someone like me who loves change, I might be more of an early adapter to things, right? But someone who maybe struggles with change, this might be really uncomfortable and demotivating for them.
Absolutely. And if somebody feels very vulnerable in their employment situation because of what they are hearing, of course they are going to be demotivated.
Yeah.
So yes. And again, it doesn't matter what your motivations are. And that's one of the things we'll be talking about today is how it affects the individuals,
Mhm.
because the change starts from the individual perspective. People can't tell you, oh, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. You have to be able to show them who they are and what this is going to mean to them and how you are going to help them adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I also want to, in this conversation, talk about teams and really
Definitely.
how AI can affect motivation around teams and some strategies that we can employ to really help our teams adapt to this. But
Yeah.
before we go down sort of that rabbit hole of teams, it's a good rabbit hole to go down. I would love to, I know that we're limited on time, so I don't want to take each individual motivator, but if we could flavor some of go into the three clusters, but flavor some of the conversation around maybe just a few motivators within each of the clusters, how, and again, these are all generalizations because we're all individuals. And so if you know your motivational map, then you can have a richer conversation, of course, around this. But just general terms, when we're looking at people that are, for example, in the relationship clusters, how is AI and motivation, how are they intertwined and affected by this?
What I'd like for us to do is there are three levels that we're talking about here. We're going to be talking about teams, where I mentioned we're going to talk about individuals, but there
Yeah.
is the leadership level. And
Yes,
maybe
as
we can
that too.
start
Yeah.
at the leadership level.
Okay. So
And
as a leader,
yes, as far as I'm concerned, as a leader, you have to know yourself and you have to know your people. And if you help your people know themselves, you're a hero.
right.
And of course, the way they can do that is by doing a motivational survey. Because what the motivational maps will do is it will be able to tell the individuals where they are, who they like, their level of motivation and how they feel about AI. It will give you team statistics, and it can give you the departmental statistics. And if you're a small company, it'll give you the company statistics. If you're a large company, it takes a lot more work, but it can also give that to you as well.
Right.
So you're getting your statistics at all levels. The other reason why I highly recommend that is it gives you a benchmark. So when you are implementing motivate your AI, sorry, you can see, because one of the things we recommend is during change management, you should be looking at the group that's being changed, their motivators every 4 months. Because
Right.
what that does, it helps to prevent going off on making unintended consequences worse. You can spot them right away, make your changes, and move on.
Right.
So let's go into that leadership thing. One of the things that it'll help them to understand is who are the creators, who are in the growth cluster, okay? Because the growth cluster loves to learn. They'll take a more risk because they don't mind if they're wrong. They don't mind if they fail. They see it as an opportunity to grow.
Right.
Okay. And they, as you said earlier, are the early adopters.
Mhm.
You know, and what the leader can do is tap on them to help the others.
The others, yeah.
Okay. And then we have the other cluster, which is the achievement clusters.
Mhm.
And the achievement clusters is they will do it if they can, you can show them how it is going to help them do their work. Okay, how it's going to make them more efficient, more productive. They will be right on that because
Mhm.
that's who they are. The group that you would have, you will need to do more personal work with is the relationship group.
Relationship, yeah.
Because remember, they're slow to change. They're slow to trust anything that's new. And they're not the only ones who don't trust AI at this point in time. Okay. So they are normally or potentially could be the resistors to change. So what you have to do is again educate them how this change is going to help them get the security they need, how this change is going to help them have the connections they need, how this change is going to help them get the recognition they need. Okay.
So it's really, for that relationship cluster, it's really about looking at it in terms of helping them with the what's in it for me,
That's exactly
right?
it.
In
And
order to be
yeah,
able to adapt to the change.
so, and when we talk about the leadership, if they understand themselves, okay, if again, let's say the leader is in the achievement cluster, because a lot of leaders are,
Mhm.
okay. If they're in the achievement cluster and they have some of the growth as well, they will tend to talk about it in glowing terms without addressing some of the real issues
Mhm.
or what people fear, people's
Right.
feelings, because that's not a realm they're really comfortable in. Okay. But what they have, once they understand that the people they are working with needs a different level of conversation, one of the things they can do is reframe the narrative. But, and this is only important, only if it is true for their organization, their team. And that is position AI as an assistant. It's adjunct. It's not going to replace them. Okay.
Right.
It's a tool. And in all of these, when I'm looking at when individuals, teams, and leadership, that has to become the norm, is to look at this as a tool to help you. Yeah. So that's one way is reframing that, I think, because you look at it, AI doesn't know what's happening in the real world. You look at your workflow, you go, oh, we've got to handle that. We've got to handle that. You can program it into AI, but if AI will only do exactly what you tell it at this point in time,
Right.
yes, it's
Yeah.
going to grow.
Yeah.
Agentic AI can make decisions, but again, it can only make decisions on data it has. Human beings have intuition, and they can create action out of that intuition. That is something a machine can't do.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say too is that while people are trying to program AI to be creative, it still does not have the capacity to be able to discern creativity the way that humans can.
It
So
can
that
only, yeah, sorry. I
no,
was just going to say it can only create on based on what it knows.
right. Yeah. So there's that out of the box thinking that
Yeah.
it really can't do. It really is relegated to the box. So in that you've kind of broken down each of the three clusters in terms of not just leadership, but also personal, because a leader is a person, and
Mhm.
so their feelings around or their
Yeah.
their motivators are going to affect them. And ultimately that will affect the team. As the leaders are looking at implementing these AI initiatives,
Mhm.
what are some of the challenges that you see that leaders may have with their teams?
Well, the biggest one that we're seeing out there is people are afraid they're going to lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be addressed. Um, one of the things that leaders need to do, and this is all part of the preparation, which I find, I'm very change friendly, but I like to plan for change so that other people don't feel discombobulated or unhappy or demotivated about it. So if I'm going to work with, let's say it's a small company that had maybe 5 people in a team, we'll just use that. And they say, Akila, we'd like to have an AI system that will handle certain aspects like of what we do. Well, first thing I would do is I would go through their workflow. And then we would do a value map in the areas that would give them the biggest values if we AIified those areas. Okay. But when we're doing that, we look at the people who are doing that job. And do they have the skills to continue to do it? So you'll have to create upscaling opportunities for them. Okay. The other thing you should be doing is look at the job and craft the new jobs to match their motivators. So somebody who is creative, you want to put them in a position where they can work with the computer. The computer does the everyday stuff and they do the more creative things, like building your brand and coming up with the graphics and stuff like that, that suits you, that not somebody can generate that is almost a copy of you. It's really interesting. What's being generated by AI is fantastic, but I am surprised at the number of people who look at an AI generated image and say, not interested. So you're going to need real creative people. Reality is becoming a commodity, believe it or not. Just yesterday, I was reading an article about YouTube using AI in the background to edit people's videos without their knowledge.
Oh,
yes. And when I say edit, it's talking about smoothing out wrinkles, making them a little bit more attractive.
mm-hmm.
And what the outcome is it doesn't look real.
Right.
So how are people to know what is real and what is not? Yeah. And people want to know what is real. So there is a human signature, if you like, when things are created by a person and when it's done by AI. So creative people, when it comes to writing or drawing or any of those things, they are always going to be needed.
So the first thing that leaders need to address based on what you've answered in terms of challenges is really helping people feel secure about their jobs. They are going to be looking at those jobs differently and really redoing those job descriptions, that their jobs are not actually just going to be going away, that there is an opportunity for upscaling within the organization.
And it's more than job descriptions. Now you have job descriptions that has a lot of tasks that can be done by AI. So it's a job role. Your role is not your role is not as a secretary at the front desk. Your role is an ambassador for people. Okay, so how you do that can manifest in a lot of different ways. And that's especially good for somebody who is a friend motivator, because people means a lot to them. So
Right.
instead of sitting there and just answering the phone and doing some of the task that is just horrendous, that takes up their time and stresses them out, they can spend more time on the phone. They can say, let's say two people have the receptionist job, and you could have one person answering the phone for an hour, and you have the other person making outgoing calls for an hour, and then you switch that.
Right.
So there's so much ways you can change roles and jobs that is going to enrich the company.
And so what you're really speaking about in this example is creating a space where people have a sense of safety and security in their roles, in their jobs, that maybe right now they don't have because they're viewing the technology as an opportunity to replace them.
Exactly. And so what I'm saying is, if these things are thought of first, when the announcement comes out, the
Mhm.
leader can say to them, here are some of the things we're planning. We've got the upskilling, we're looking at the roles. We've got, now that we know your motivations, we can look at what it is that you would be a best fit that would make you happy and motivated. So you benefit and the company benefits.
Absolutely. And that, that speaks to something that we've talked about before, which is this lack of planning that people have when technology happens. That's like everyone is excited about AI and about the technology and what it can do, but there's not a thought to how are we going to implement it? How is it really going to affect people? So could you speak a little bit about some of the strategies that you've started to look at and are beginning to put together for companies around being more proactive and less reactive when it comes to technology?
Well, one of the first things is that they need an overview of the technology, what it can do. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The second thing is, if they are an ethical company, they need to draw up, the very first thing is they need to draw up an ethical and governance policy and let that lead all of their planning and implementation. Does it fit the ethics here? Does it comply with this? So it's one of those things. It's where that 1 ounce of prevention could create pounds and can save you pounds and pounds and pounds of worry. Okay.
Yeah. Can you give an example before you go on to the next point? Could you give a little bit of an example around the ethical piece? Because I think a lot of companies are looking at that or hearing right now in this conversation, and they're like, oh, well, we have an ethics policy already. So could you explain a little bit around what that really means when we're talking about technology, specifically AI?
Well, the ethical policy is a statement of how you are going to manage the people and all of the resources in your company, including your stakeholders. So if you say, and like I said, 3M did this, is they say, we're going to implement AI and we will not lay off one person. That's assuming, of course, that if they were going to fire somebody for whatever reason, they will still do that for cause. Yeah, they will do that. But they weren't going to lay off people as a result of AI. And they did that. That is part of that ethical thing. There's another company that I know of. They had people training the AI to take over their jobs, and they never told those people that. That is unethical.
That is unethical. Yeah.
So it's looking at, you put down how you intend to behave, and you behave that way.
Right.
And then the governance part is the compliance and all of those with the things that you need to comply with.
Thank you for those two examples, because I think that really illustrates to people when we're talking about the ethical and governance compliances and really having to look at that and implement something. I think that example gives a really concrete example of not just what it looks like in practice, But I think it goes to your next point, which is around, doing no harm to
Yes.
those that are within our organization or outside of our organization.
Mhm. Yes.
And okay, so what were you had some other points, and so I
Oh,
interrupted.
no, I think, where are we for time right now? Because I'm thinking we could do one show on each one of those
Yeah, we
points.
could, we could. We've got a little bit more time, so if you can give one more around the idea of psychological safety.
Psychological safety is, again, one of my bugaboos. It's always, you know, there, sometimes that can be a real pain because there's so many things that matter to me. If it aligns with people, if it's about people, it matters. Okay. So when you think of psychological safety, one of the first things that leaders need to do is to demonstrate that vulnerability is acceptable
Mhm.
in an organization. And one of the ways that they can do that is when the AI is being adopted, they should be the first ones to integrate AI into their workflow. That way, they are walking the walk that their employees are walking. They can be able to empathize a little bit more with how they're feeling. Now, so that is one of the things. The other one is to have anonymous feedback. If people are having issues with it, they should be able to say so. If they're
Mhm.
having a positive feedback, they can talk to everyone they want, or they could put it in anonymously, but
Mhm.
they feel safe to say what they're feeling. Okay.
Yeah.
That's another big one. Trust issues. There is the skepticism about AI's accuracy and whether or not they should trust this. But you know what? They don't have to. What you should be able to tell them is if you don't trust an answer, if you don't know how to do it, talk to someone. We will help you to query that answer. Where did it get its information from? Validate the information. What logic did it use to come up with this specific answer? You should have to be able to explain it to you. So it's the where, how, when, and all of that sort of stuff. And then if people start doing that, that's the only way they will gain trust, or they will be validated, and they will have to learn how to deal with it. Because everybody talks about hallucinations, right?
Yes.
Well, hallucinations usually happen or could happen from poorly trained data. Okay. But when you are prompting, you can also, like, everybody talks about positive prompting, but there's also negative prompting, or you could say, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. What I would say to it is, if you don't find anything about this, just let me know. I don't want any false information introduced into this data, and I will be checking it.
But I also, what I love about the point that you're making around psychological safety is that we're giving to have people have that sense is to also have them feel like they have permission to validate the information,
And
to
they should
check
have
it
the information.
for accuracy,
Yes.
and that they recognize that it is not only okay, but it's expected that you check for accuracy, that you don't just, take things at
Exactly.
face value. So I know we could continue on and talk about all of this, but one last quick point around this before we jump into our giveaways and all of that is around the teams. So when we think about a team that's going to be using AI as a group, if you could give a leader one piece of advice on how they could support their team, what advice would you give them?
Well, some of the issues that a team faces is, one, role ambiguity.
Mhm.
They aren't sure what they're doing anymore because so much of their job could be done sometimes up to 45%, 50% of their jobs can be done by AI. The other one is they don't know how to use AI. So that makes them feel very vulnerable. And then there is, I just talked about that one, the trust issue. And then there's the uneven adoption, where some people, the early adopters know, and then it makes the other people feel very vulnerable because they don't know. So the solutions for that is really simple in a way, in that the leader needs to understand that the team dynamics comes from a combination of role identity, mindset, and role identity, mindset, and team support. Okay. So the role identity mindset is, again, once they understand what motivates them, and the other thing that they really need to understand, and the way I put it is, if you were given a human assistant, would you refuse it? Chances are is no. But you would delegate a portion of your job to that human assistant.
Yes.
AI is no different. AI is your assistant. It is just not, it doesn't walk over to your desk. It's not sitting, well, it is sitting beside you on your desk, but
Somewhere on your desk.
yeah. But, you have to get the mindset that this isn't somebody to assist you or something to assist you in getting your job done better, faster, and then freeing you up to do more. One of the things I love about that is that it is going to work to our advantage in work-life balance, in our mental health, our physical health, things like that. But some of the solutions is that you use pilot programs and involve people in it. If I'm going to be working with somebody and I've got something, I'll bring that team in to do the testing, because they will know whether it's working properly or not. And they feel very, very involved. You have AI champions. If you're going to use AI champions, these are the people who already know the early adopters. I would take them through a course or a few hours of however long it takes, of our ethical policies and governance, so that they're versed in it. So when they are coaching or mentoring teammates, they're not taking them outside of the company's framework.
Yeah, and all those solutions, I feel, really stem into an arching theme, which is, as a leader, I'm responsible for really making sure that people feel safe, but also that they are learning, that there's an opportunity to learn, and that I'm recognizing where their mind is at, and if there needs to be a shift or if it needs to be cultivated.
Yes.
So that's really what I'm hearing you say.
And yes, that's exactly it. And there's one other thing, is that leadership have to be open for ideas from their teams.
Yeah.
Because when they're doing their work, or they start to really get excited about this, they may have ideas that would advance the company further if their leadership listens to it and see that it fits within the company vision.
Now, normally we do a giveaway of a motivational map, a debrief, and a coaching session, and we are still going to do that. But I would like to add, and Akilah doesn't know that I'm adding this, so this is a little bit of a surprise for her too. But I would like to add an opportunity, if someone has possibly already done a motivational map, or maybe they haven't and they'd like to, but also add an opportunity for them to have at least a consult with you around AI strategy, like how they can set up an AI strategy meeting with you. Because that is one of the things that you offer, is helping people really acclimate and adopt AI in their workplace. And you also do a lot of strategy work with people around that. So even if they could have a 20-minute conversation with you around what that might look like, I think they would benefit greatly from that conversation.
That's a lovely idea. No, I didn't know about it, but I think it's a great idea. Thank you for coming up with it, and I would be more than happy to do that.
Okay, see what happens when you put someone on the spot on live, they'll say yes. So you guys got an extra bonus because but no, Aquila is lovely. And I'm really excited about this piece that you're working on, which is really helping not just understand motivation so that adoption can improve, but really providing a really strategic plan around how people can adopt AI in the workplace, which, again, dating myself, but throughout the time that I have been in the workforce, we've had tons of different technology. And no one ever stops to go, how do we get people on board with this technology?
Well, I will date myself as well and tell you that I graduated in 1980. So I have seen the dawn of computers
Yes.
being implemented. I have seen the mistakes. I've seen the cost. And that's one of the reasons I decided that when it comes to AI, if I could prevent one or two companies from suffering from those costs or consequences, it would make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and with that, I want to say thank you so much for this conversation. It was so much fun kind of delving into what's only a few months ago someone would say was futuristic, and yet it's our present day, which is very fascinating. And
Yes.
again, remember, when you click the link for the survey, you enter into a chance to win a motivational map, a debrief, and a coaching session with Aquila. And this week, you even get an AI strategy session, a mini one with Aquila. Thank you for that, Aquila. Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you, Marie. As always, you are so charming and so much fun. We could go on for hours.
Thank you. All right, so we will see everyone next week, same time, same place.
Okay.